მოის მოტივაციისთვის რას გააკეთებს კომპანია, ეს იქნება რაღაც დასვენების პაკეტი, ეს იქნება ბონუსები თუ ასე ვთქვათ. ეს მიდგომები დიდი ხანია ზონაში განერგილია და ეს უკვე თქვენი ნაწილია?
კი, იდეაში ეს რაღაც თითქოს ხმამაღლა ცოტა ხნის წინ გამოვიტანეთ, თუმცა საკმაოდ დიდი ხანია დანერგილია. კონკურენტუნარიანი არის ძალიან ჩვენთან თანამშრომლებთან მიდგომა. ეს არ არის მხოლოდ რაღაც ფინანსური ნაწილი არ იგულისხმება ცხადია, ძალიან ბევრი internal branding-ის მიმართულებით კეთდება, რაც მერე განაპირობებს იმას, რომ ის სულის კვეთებით სავსე არის, რაც ბრენდს აქვს რა და თქვენაც აღნიშნეთ და ჩამოთვალეთ, ეს არის ყოველშაბათი გამგზავრება ევროპაში, სწავლის დაფინანსებაც მათ შორის, მით უმეტეს ჩვენთან ძალიან ბევრი სტუდენტია დასაქმებული და გარდა იმისა, რომ ხელს უწყობთ სწავლაში და არ უშლით, ვუფინანსებთ კიდეც წარმატებულ თანამშრომლებს ამ პროექტს.
ხო, მით უმეტეს რომ კადრების ნაწილში ალბათ თქვენს რაღაც კონკრეტული გამოწვევები გექნებათ, როგორც ყველა ბიზნეს საქართველოში.
კი ბატონო, ნამდვილად არის.
რამდენი სიცოცხლე აქვს ბრენდს? ესეც სტანდარტული კითხვა, რომელსაც ამ გადაცემაში ვსვამ ხოლმე, ანუ შეუძლია თუ არა მას დაბრუნება სიკვდილში?
ხო, ესე ისერა და კლასიკური გაგებით თუ ვიტყვით, ალბათ რთულია დაბრუნება და შეუძლებელი გააჩნია რა შეცდომას დაუშვებს ბრენდი.
ძალიან რთულად იქნება თუ არა, ხო?
რთულად კვატიობენ და განსაკუთრებით დღეს, ზუსტად იმიტომ რომ როგორც აღნიშნეთ, ძალიან მომხმარებელი ძალიან გაზრდილია და სხვა მოთხოვნები აქვს დღეს. აქედან გამომდინარე რთულად კვატიობენ, თუმცა ყოფილი შემთხვევები ალბათ და არსებობს გადარჩენის საშუალებას, მით უმეტეს როდესაც ბრენდი ხარ. შენ ალბათ შეიძლება ისე შემოატრიალო, თუნდაც გულწრფელი აღიარებით, არ ვიცი, რაღაც ისეთი ქმედებით, რითიც შეიძლება უფრო მეტად გაპატიან დაშვებული შეცდომა. თუმცა ძალიან იშვიათად ხდება ეს, ამიტომ პირდაპირ პასუხი იქნება და ალბათ ერთი. აკადემიურადაც თუ მიუდგებით, ზოგადად ბრენდის ნაწილს, აი პლატფორმულად 3-დან 5 წლამდე აქ ხოლმე სასიცოცხლო ციკლი, თუ რაღაცა რეორგანიზება არ იგეგმება კომპანიაში, სასურველი არის, რომ თვით ჩაკვირვებას, თვითანალიზს 3-დან 5 წლამდე მიუბრუნდე და ან გააგრძელო იგივე კურსი, ან რაღაცა ცვლილება გაკეთო. მთავარია, რომ ეს ფუნდამენტური ღირებულება არ უნდა შეცვალო, რაზეც ცხადია ბრენდით გაწყვეტილი.
როგორ შევქმნათ ბრენდი, რომელიც უყვართ?
პირველ რიგში ადამიანის მსგავსი უნდა იყოს, ანუ ძალიან საინტერესო კითხვა და მიყვარს რაღაც ამ შინაარსის კითხვაზე პასუხი, იმიტომ რომ დღესდღეობით რაც ადამიანებს აკლიათ და დეფიციტი აქვს, არის მეორე ადამიანთან ურთიერთობა. ერთი არის რაღაც ბიზნესი არსებობს, მაგრამ ბიზნესს არ აქვს სული. ანუ ბრენდი არის იმატერიალური რაღაც და შესაბამისად ისეთი რაღაც უნდა შექმნა, რომ ადამიანს გაუჩნდეს შენთან ურთიერთობის საშუალება და ადამიანს ძირითადად მეორე ადამიანთან ურთიერთობას ირჩევს ხოლმე და ხშირად ვადარებ ხოლმე ან კინოს, ან ფილმს, იმიტომ რომ რაღაცნაირად ბრენდი, რომელიც უყვართ, აკეთებს შენი გრძნობების, სურვილების პროექციას, ანუ რეალურად რაც გაკლია, იმას ხედავ. ჩემ რაღაც იკონური ბრენდი ხარაც მახსენდება Nike, მაგალითად, ის კი არა რომ მე Nike ვიყო Nike, იმიტომ რომ ზოგჯერ შეიძლება Nike ბრენდი უფრო გამბედავი იყოს, ვიდრე ადამიანი და შენ რაც გჭირდება რაღაცასთან ასოცირებული იყო, იმასთან იწყებ მერე ურთიერთობას, იმიტომ რომ ძალიან რთულია ყიდვის აქტი მოგინდეს, ანუ შენ გინდა იმ გამოცდილების მიღება, რასაც არ ვიცი, ნაყინის ყიდვა არა, ნაყინის ალბათ ჭამა გინდა.
ხო, ჯამში ბრენდი არ არის პროდუქტი, ხო?
კი.
ჩვენი ახმები და დამოკიდებულებებია, რომ ვიყოთ რაღაცის ნაწილი, რომელიც ძალიან ახლოს არის ჩვენთან. მიუხედავად შეიძლება შორს იყოს გეოგრაფიულად. მადლობა ბრენდის მასშტაბობისთვის, სუმერს წარმატებები ფერად მომავალს ისურვებ და ვისურვებთ, რომ ამ ტექნოლოგიურ განვითარებას არ ჩამორჩებით, მაგრამ გეზრდნოთ იმაზეც, რომ საზოგადოების უდიდესი ნაწილიც აი ამ პროგრესის თანამოზიარე.
ძალიან დიდი მადლობა თქვენს ესე.
გაიცანი შენი პირადი ფარმაცევტი.
გამარჯობა, მე ვარ ნათია და მზად ვარ პერსონალურად ვიზრუნო თქვენს ჯანმრთელობაზე.
პირადი ფარმაცევტის დახმარებით რიგის გარეშე მიიღებ პერსონალურ კონსულტაციას როგორც ადგილზე, ასევე სახლიდან გაუსვლელად. მთავარია დაურეკო ან მიწერო. ნებისმიერ დროს, ნებისმიერი ადგილიდან და განსაზღვრულ დროს მიიღო შენთვის საჭირო მედიკამენტები და თავის მოვლის საშუალებები სწრაფად, მარტივად და უფასოდ. ავერსის პირადი ფარმაცევტი, თქვენი ჯანმრთელობისთვის.
დაკავდით სასურველი აქტივობებით, მიიღეთ გამაჯანსაღებელი პროცედურები და ისარგებლეთ ინდური ალტერნატიული მედიცინით. ჩვენთან გელოდებათ კომფორტი, რომელიც დაიმსახურეთ.
ორბი ჯგუფის ახალი პროექტი თბილისში.
Central Park Towers-ი.
გახდი 5 ვარსკვლავიანი სასტუმროს მესაკუთრე 1,800,000-ად და მიიღე ყოველწლიური შემოსავალი 400,000.
Central Park Towers-ი.
300 მილიონიანი ინფრასტრუქტურით, სადაც განთავსდება
5 ვარსკვლავიანი ჰოტელ-ჰაბი 1500 ნომრით.
სასტუმრო Redison Blue.
მიშელინის ვარსკვლავის რესტორნები. ძვირადღირებული ბრენდების მოლი.
რეგიონში ყველაზე დიდი მულტიფუნქციური ივენთ ჰოლი 2500 ადამიანზე.
ყველაზე დიდი კაზინო საქართველოში.
პრემიუმ კლასის სპა და საოფისე სივრცეები.
Central Park Towers-ი.
გახდი 5 ვარსკვლავიანი სასტუმროს მესაკუთრე 1,800,000-ად და მიიღე ყოველწლიური შემოსავალი 400,000. მშენებლობა უკვე 12 თვეა აქტიურად მიმდინარეობს.
დაგუკავშირდით 591 451 451
322 200
3W-CPT-G.
გერმანული სიზუსტე, იტალიური ტექნოლოგია და ქართული გამოცდილება. კომფორტული ავეჯი საქართველოს გულიდან. ალეპური, იქ სადაც ბუნება ხვდება ხელოვნებას.
რა იცი მომხმარებლის უფლებების შესახებ? თუ არ მოგეწონა ონლაინ შენაძენი, შენ გაქვს 14 დღიანი უპირობო დაბრუნების უფლება. თუ შეძენილი ნივთი ნაკლოვანია, შეგიძლია მოითხოვო შეკეთება, შეცვლა, ფასის შემცირება ან თანხის დაბრუნება. თუ დაირღვა შენი უფლებები, დაგვიკავშირდი. საქართველოს კონკურენციის ეროვნული სააგენტო.
Are you ready to connect to a perfect journey with Turkish Airlines? To enjoy a world of flavors and make memories that last a lifetime. To connect to a journey that's perfect because of you.
ტრანსპორტერი BRP-ის ექსკლუზიური დისტრიბუტორი საქართველოში. The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Georgian Economy Minister Levan Davitashvili on Wednesday told the country's parliament competitiveness of the Middle Corridor, a logistics road connecting Central Asia to China and Europe via the South Caucasus, and the number of international shipments through the direction had significantly increased. In his report to the lawmaking body, Davitashvili noted the average growth of cargo transported by international shipments by transport branches had equaled 11% over the last 3 years. The World Bank, with the financial support of Sweden, launched a new comprehensive study, Poverty and Distributional Consequences of Air Pollution in Tbilisi, which analyzes the severe effects of air pollution on the health and economic well-being of Tbilisi's residents, with a particular focus on how the most vulnerable populations of the capital of Georgia are impacted. The study leverages a variety of data sources, including administrative data, surveys, satellite imagery, and real-time monitoring to assess the distributional impacts of air pollution. The report indicates that while wealthier individuals reside in the city center with higher pollution levels, poor households and those with lower education are more vulnerable due to longer outdoor work hours, limited knowledge about air pollution and its impacts, and higher exposure to indoor air pollution. Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili on Wednesday remarked on the ruling party's recent move to reintroduce the law on the transparency of foreign influence, saying Georgian Dream said no to Europe in all directions. The president believes the Georgian Dream is engaged in sabotaging Georgia's European path and the future of the country. Georgia's European path cannot be stopped. Nobody can restore the past. No Russian law nor any other destructive policy can prevent a determined nation to achieve its goal. No pasaran. Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili posted on X. This is the Checkpoints. I'm Eleni Kvanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. Georgia has a new cooperation strategy of the Asian Development Bank with Georgia aimed at fostering a green and inclusive economy within the country. This strategy underscores the importance of regional cooperation and integration and the promotion of the private sector, human capital development, and initiatives addressing climate change. This was one of the issues discussed between the Georgian Finance Minister Lasha Kutsishvili and Masatsugu Asakawa, the president of the Asian Development Bank, in late March at the headquarters of the Asian Development Bank in Manila, the capital of the Philippines. The discussions primarily revolved around the cooperation between Georgia and the Asian Development Bank and the progress of projects financed by the ADB within the country. The meeting focused on the significance of hosting the 57th annual meeting of the ADB in Georgia on May 2 to 5 this year. This is the first time Georgia will be hosting the meeting. Less than a month before the event, Leslie Bierman Lam, Country Director, Georgia Resident Mission Central and West Asia Department, talked to the Checkpoints. As Country Director, Leslie is leading ADB's operations in the Caucasus nation, managing the bank's relationship with Georgia's government, development partners, and other stakeholders. Leslie was the representative in ADB's North American Representative Office. In this role, Leslie mobilized financing and support for ADB's developing member countries, shared development knowledge and experience, established and deepened partnerships with public, private, and non-profit organizations in North America, and raised public awareness of ADB with key stakeholders in Canada and the United States. Leslie previously led strategy and policy development coordination for key strategic and institutional considerations relating to non-sovereign operations, public-private partnerships, and SOE engagement. She also led ADB's participation in G20 activities and chaired the Blended Finance Committee. Leslie joined ADB in 2002 and first served in the office of the General Counsel, a senior counsel supporting sovereign and non-sovereign operations. She then moved to the office of the Vice President and Senior Advisor, where she advised on a range of strategic, policy, operational, and administrative issues. From 2009 to 2011, she was responsible for financial sector operations as Principal Financial Sector Specialist in ADB's India Resident Commission. While on special leave from 2011 to 2014, Leslie practiced corporate law in Bucharest, Romania, advising on renewable energy projects in Eastern Europe. Prior to joining ADB, Leslie was a senior associate at Sherman & Sterling in Hong Kong, where she specialized in project and structured finance, restructurings, and general corporate practice. Leslie Lam sat down with the checkpoints for her first face-to-face interview in Georgia. Ms. Leslie, thank you so much for being with us and taking our questions. Let us start our conversation with preparations and expectations that ADB has with its annual meeting that will be held here in Georgia, and Georgia is the host country of this meeting.
Yeah, this is really exciting for us, and I hope for Georgia as well. It's the first time that Georgia has hosted the annual meeting of the Board of Governors for the Asian Development Bank. Azerbaijan hosted in 2015, but other than that, this is the first time we've had it in the Caucasus region, so that's also very exciting. We feel this is a really wonderful opportunity to highlight and showcase the partnership between Georgia and ADB. And really beyond that, also for Georgia to show its commitment to regional integration and development. I would say that the government is a master at planning these types of events. We've had experience with them for the Silk Road Forum and the Carrick Ministerial, and they've been spotless preparations, and we've been working very closely with them to prepare for the meeting, and I think we're very pleased with the way things are progressing.
How do you see the role of the private sector and their involvement in this meeting, and what is the overall objective of the meeting?
So, I mean, it's a requirement that we host the meeting every year. It's the Board of Governors. We need to go through some administrative procedures, but also it goes beyond that. Each year we have a separate theme, and this year the theme is the Bridge to the Future. And that obviously goes with the regional integration that we're all so excited about here. And this is a really high-level opportunity. We'll have thousands of delegates from across the world, particularly ADB member countries, that include the private sector, but also include senior government officials, finance ministers, private sector, as I said, media, civil society, a really broad array of stakeholders, other development partners. It's an opportunity for Georgia to lead on many key issues of development in the region and lead those discussions. And the private sector, it basically provides a lot of networking opportunities for the private sector in that respect.
Wonderful. You mentioned that this is also a great opportunity to highlight ADB Georgia's relations. What would be the main figures if we talked about the figures that this relation rests on at this point in time?
Well, ADB has, Georgia joined ADB in 2007. And since that time, we have contributed roughly $4 billion in investment in the country. And that has sort of evolved in terms of as the development needs have evolved. So initially when we became partnered with Georgia, we were coming in 2007, we quickly had the global financial crisis, and then we had the armed conflict with Russia, and so there was a period of recovery, and our first investment in that recovery period was an emergency loan for post-conflict recovery. We've then subsequently changed in about 2010, we moved into really a decade of large infrastructure development, and that's where we see some of these larger figures you mentioned, and that was really to reduce bottlenecks in transport, infrastructure, energy reliability, urban services, improve urban services, and So of that, and we've now moved into more of a period of transformative engagement where we're looking at sort of combining our investment and some policy reform as well. There's a little bit of a different shift, moving away, and again, as the needs move, so too does the development assistance. We're moving into diversifying into education and health as well, and our sort of overarching objective is for, we just recently approved our country partnership strategy.
Yes,
yeah, you wanted to ask? Okay, I'll hold off on that one.
Let me highlight that a little bit later. But like broadly speaking, there have always been like these 5 areas of assistance where ADB has had this leading role: transport, water, other urban infrastructure and services, public sector management, finance, and energy. Where do you think have been the most positive results to this point, and which areas proved to be still challenging?
Fair question. I think we can say with certainty that the infrastructure investments that have been made have been very strategic and have yielded tangible results in a pretty quick time frame. For example, if we look at the East-West Highway, we're looking at reduced travel times, increased road safety, higher quality infrastructure, climate resilient infrastructure. I mean, those are concrete, tangible outcomes that people can see, and they're relatively short order. I would say on the policy reform side, we would have a little bit longer lead time because you don't immediately see the results of the policy reforms because they often have to be sequenced and take a number of years. Capacity is very instrumental in ensuring that those reforms move ahead, as well, and in infrastructure. I would like to highlight, though, that Georgia has I would say has really ramped up its expertise in procurement and safeguards, and has really become one of our more capable clients in terms of project implementation.
What would you say are some of the lessons learned,
yeah.
Yes, by ADB since 2007, as you mentioned?
I think we need to start to focus that once you build an asset, you need to then maintain that asset, and so looking at ways to ensure asset maintenance and cost recovery will be something that we should be focusing on. And in policy reforms, I would say, again, the capacity to be able to implement those reforms are very critical. So those are key areas to look at.
And speaking about one more tangible result, I just remembered what the finance minister said. He announced that Georgia might soon become the donor country for the ADB. Do you see that coming? And if so, do you think that Georgia is ready now to become a donor country, and do you see your own support working in that direction?
Actually, I'm quite excited about that personally, because it's really it shows again the evolution of Georgia. Now it's in a position as an upper middle income country to be able to contribute. Not only financially, but I think in the broader discussions about these more vulnerable states and how sharing lessons learned. And so it's not just about money, but that's obviously, it gives you, if I may, a seat at the table to have those very important development discussions. So I think that's a really exciting advancement.
Yes, we would love to hear the news about that part as well. Now moving to the Georgia's country strategy for 2024 to 2028, the new one, 4 priorities, cross-cutting priorities: climate action and disaster risk management, regional cooperation and integration, private sector development, and digital transformation and gender equality. What is the logic behind these cross-cutting priorities?
Yeah. Those were, first of all, they coincide with the government's own development strategy, Vision 2030. we are supporting some of the pillars in that strategy. So a country partnership strategy is not just sort of a document for ADB itself. It's really a document to decide how ADB and the country work together and what our priorities will be. So those pillars have been developed over a period of 2 years of consultations with multiple stakeholders beyond the government, obviously the government, but private sector, civil society. It's been other development partners have been very critical to ensure that, we are ensuring that we pursue our comparative areas of advantage and are not sort of duplicating efforts. I would say the overarching theme of the country partnership strategy is, if you look at it from that level and then drill down to these priority areas you mentioned, is really a green and inclusive regional economic gateway that fosters...
Which says everything.
Well, it's everything, but I think it fosters a more resilient and inclusive society. So I think the intention is not to have Georgia as a simple conduit. We don't want Georgia to be sort of just people pass through. What we want is all the benefits of the trade, of production to really go down to the society and municipal level and rural level. So it's a very more inclusive growth story rather than just a limited growth story.
What type of factor is middle corridor in this bigger picture and the development of the middle corridor? Because we all understand that middle corridor needs a lot of infrastructure work to be done, a lot of priorities to be taken. Is it conflicting with the overarching goal of this process being green and inclusive?
I would say no, not at all. I think it's very much in line with that objective. It depends how you develop it, right? So if you develop it in such a way that you have a green and inclusive structure, then it will be a very positive story, not just for the country, but for the region as a whole. Remember, Georgia sits really at the Eurasian crossroads and has a very key geographic positioning which we need to leverage to make it larger than that. And I would say that, also it helps serve landlocked countries in the region. And so there's a very big role and very important role for the middle corridor. And we've been investing a lot of money in an effort in developing that middle corridor. We have the East-West Highway, North-South corridor, the very much anticipated Kshery-Kovi tunnel, which hopefully will be opening soon, or will break through soon. But it goes beyond that. It's logistics, it's customs and border procedures. So it's not just the hard infrastructure, it's the soft infrastructure. It's the, all the policies, the harmonization of policies, ensuring that, we facilitate that cross-border movement of goods and people rather than just focusing on building roads, for example. So it's a very holistic approach that will require a number of initiatives, rails, ports, not just roads. And so it's a very comprehensive.
Yes, you mentioned ports and the rail. In the rail situation, we already have the joint company that will be working, that's Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. By the way, the memo was signed here in Georgia during the Silk Road Forum that you have mentioned. What about the ports part? What is ADB's vision of how Georgia should be prioritizing or developing the port infrastructure? Is it building new ones? Is it like helping the old ones to gain more capacities? And do you see alternatives and opportunities there?
That's a strategic decision for the government as to where to best position the port in line with appropriate feasibility studies. ADB will stand ready to support the government in how it chooses to develop that, be it access roads and rail and whatnot.
Yes, thank you. Fair enough. Also, a very interesting point was in the country strategy how ADB is still seeing as an immediate risk of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine and the spillover effects that it might have in the long term on Georgia, weaker local currency, partly because of reduced money transfers, and also these risk for the trade to be disrupted. And in this country strategy, ADB stresses that it will have consultations with the IMF to mitigate these risks. Do you have any discomfort, so to say, because of the fact that the standby project of the IMF is suspended on Georgia, or is it just another case and you are working with the IMF without no problems, and this will be kept as because fiscal deficit and sound macroeconomic policy is like the overarching goal of every IFI that is working with Georgia, and every strategic partner that is working with Georgia at this point.
Yeah. We work with the IMF as we do with all of our development partners. The standby arrangement, that situation does not have an immediate impact on our current engagement. Again, the focus, as you mentioned, is on sound fiscal management, which we have. So that's what we are focusing on.
Wonderful. And also a little bit about yourself, Ms. Leslie. What it's like for you to be working in Georgia. You have come here last year in September. You have assumed the office. So did the country meet your expectations? And at this point, is it more challenging or more interesting to be working in Georgia?
So I've worked in a number of countries, and I've lived in a number of countries, and I've learned early on, don't have expectations when you go somewhere, because there's no point, because it's never going to be what you think it's going to be. So I came here with a very open mind. Obviously, I had high hopes that I would enjoy it, and I would say unequivocally, Georgia has exceeded all of my hopes in terms, both professionally and personally. From a professional standpoint, it's been extremely rewarding. I would say the caliber of our counterparts is exceptional, without fail. Dedicated, and it's really a pleasure to work with our government counterparts and private sector. I mean, everybody has a very strong vision and really works to achieve those objectives. So that's been very rewarding. From a personal standpoint, I have found people to be just extremely warm, generous of heart, very welcoming. And even though I've been here only 6 months, I call it my home right now.
That's nice to hear. And also, what do you think will be your personal goal to achieve during your tenure in Georgia? Where do you want to take further ADB-Georgia relations?
That, as I've been here, that's the question I ask myself from the moment I stepped foot in Georgia. And it has evolved and is being refined the more I learn. And that's the journey. I need a little bit more time to come to a concrete plan, I would say. But I think the overarching objective is to ensure that ADB is perceived as the development partner of choice, that we are agile, responsive, and really, are here to support the government and the private sector in their journey. Georgia is very fortunate and has a real wide variety and array of development partners to work with, and I think it's really important to come together as a community to ensure that we are working together, and I think from what I've seen that is definitely happening. So that's the overarching objective. The specific sort of, if I may, pillars of how I hope to achieve that, I'll leave for a later date.
Maybe for our interview as well.
Yeah.
I will jot it down. And my last question, where ADB sees Georgia's opportunity to keep the momentum for the economic growth? Because you know that due to very tough situation, but we still had, as Standard & Poor's called it, a booster for the economic growth. We had 2-digit economic growth. Now it is getting more moderate. Where do you see Georgia has the biggest capacity to keep the momentum and to keep this economy growing?
Yeah, I think I would say just keep doing what it's doing, frankly. I mean, just sort of putting efforts and resources into ensuring that we do develop this middle corridor, ensuring that we can harness the benefits of that trade and investment. Georgia, I would say, has proven to be extremely flexible. For example, we were able to complete a number of roads during the pandemic, which is unheard of in terms of having special customs to allow workers in and equipment, and that to me speaks volumes to the ability of the country to address anything that may come.
Thank you so much for very interesting accents, and thank you for taking our questions again.
Thank you, my pleasure.
What was new this week in the economy? Here is our short overview of main news and outlook.
Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze met with representatives of healthcare business community. The conversation at the meeting focused on the need for hospital and pharmaceutical industries to provide the population with continuous and accessible quality services. It was noted that states' top priority is to protect the interests of patients and that active cooperation with representatives of medical sector and clinics is key to this end. Attention at the meeting was paid to the government's approaches to solving issue in this sector, also matters to be resolved as priorities set by the medical sector. It was pointed out that the maximum protection of interests of citizens and patients and providing them with continuous quality services is the umbrella principle on which the state and the private sector agree, and that cooperation in this direction will continue. The meeting was attended by Health Minister Mikhail Sarjoladze and Head of the Government Administration Levon Georgiouliani. Georgian Economy Minister and First Vice Prime Minister Levon Davitashvili on Wednesday reported to the Parliament of Georgia in the Ministers' Hour format. Here the main takeaways: large-scale energy sector reform is going to maximize the country's energy potential and ensure energy security. In the next year, Georgia will build more than 1 kilometer power lines and infrastructure. The gasification project will provide natural gas to around 94% of Georgia's population once completed. The development of digital hub was named as one of the priorities. The modernization of Georgian railway, which is expected to be finished in 2024, as well as the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway, which would drastically shorten freight transportation time between Asia and Europe, were highlighted in the report. The Tbilisi International Airport project, which will also serve as a transit logistics center, is one of the government's major aviation infrastructure project planned for 2024. Tourist investments continue to expand. In 2023, 7.1 million overseas travelers visited the country, a 75.6% increase from 2019. Tbilisi City Hall launched a new series of personal consultant for representatives of the business sector starting April 1. Registration is possible at consultant.tbilisi.gov.g. At the municipal government meeting, Tbilisi Mayor Kakakaladze said the online portal would enable business persons to receive information on land plots, construction permits and other necessary documents. Each business person will receive individual phone consultation for at least 3 months. This is a significant service that will make it easier for people to obtain construction permits, receive information about various documents, and etc. We specially trained the employees for this and they underwent an internship. This process is ongoing to ensure that each consultant is fully qualified, Kaladze said. The list of construction products monitored by Market Surveillance Agency of Georgia will be extended by 101 more products starting next year, the Ministry of Economy announced on Monday. The body added the revised technical regulation for construction products would establish a legislative framework in which health and safety standards would have a mandatory impact over a broader range of products. This will help ensure greater protection of consumers' lives, health, property and the environment from the potential harm caused by construction products, it said. The new product will include fixed fire protection system, gas extinguishing system components and smoke and heat control systems. The body added the agency would provide necessary recommendations within the scope of inspection during the transition period until January 1, 2025 to ensure construction products placed on the Georgian market comply with technical regulations and help the sector adapt smoothly to the changes. The Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure of Georgia on Wednesday said it had exceeded its approved budget by 125.9%, spending 114 million lari over the prescribed financial plan for the first 3 months of 2024. Cash flow of the state budget amounted to 554.9 million lari, 140 million lari over the plan, the body said. The ministry added it had spent 78.1 million lari more on infrastructure projects this year than in the same period of 2023. It figures it called the highest 3 months performance rate in its history. Agencies and companies under the body management also exceeded annual budget plan, with the roads department spending 130% of the plan, the municipal development fund 112% of the plan, the United Water Supply Company 135% of the plan, Solid Waste Management Company 100% of the plan. The budget of the ministries this year is set at 3.4 billion lari. ISAT published Khachapuri Index in March 2024. The average cost of cooking one standard portion of Emiratian Khachapuri stood at 6.40 lari. This latest average price marks a 1.8% decrease compared to March 2023. Accordingly, in month-to-month developments, the price of Khachapuri decreased by 6.4% compared to the previous month. This March, the price of certain Khachapuri ingredient notably increased on annual basis: butter, milk, and yeast, while all other ingredients experienced deflation: cheese, eggs, and flour. In March, the Khachapuri index experienced an overall loss in value both monthly and yearly. The main contributor to this decline was the price of cheese, which decreased by 10.7% month to month and by 5.7% year-on-year. The negative monthly change in Khachapuri index follows traditional seasonal trends in fresh milk production. Tbilisi City Hall will add buses to 5 public transport routes in the capital from April 6. At the municipal government meeting, Tbilisi Mayor Kakakaladze said that additional buses will reduce the waiting interval for passengers. Tbilisi Mayor remarked that 50 80-meter-long buses serve Tbilisi passengers currently. Kaladze emphasized that 80-meter-long buses can serve 86% more passengers than 12-meter-long buses. The new buses will be directed towards the areas with the highest passenger traffic.
Georgian Dream returned the Russian law to the parliament. According to Mamkam Dinaradze, the leader of the ruling party, Georgian Dream, the parliamentary majority has decided to reinitiate the bill on the transparency of foreign influence in the parliament. As Dinaradze mentioned, the bill will be the same. The bill will be introduced in the parliament of Georgia with exactly the same text as it was introduced last year, with the only difference: instead of the term agent of foreign influence, the term organization carrying the interest of a foreign power will be used, said Mamkam Dinaradze, the leader of the parliamentary majority. According to him, the bill will be passed by all 3 readings by the end of the current session. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Thursday said he opposed any attempt by the Georgian government to resubmit the draft bill on transparency of foreign influence and stressed it would contradict the whole effort of strengthening the democratic institutions in the country. NATO chief believes Georgia should work on reforms to move closer to NATO and to move closer to the EU. Also, the EU has been very clear on this. I visited Georgia, Tbilisi, just a few weeks ago, and of course, one of my main messages was the importance of reforms, of strengthening democratic institutions, and the Georgian people also made it clear they want a democratic, prosperous future within the European and Euro-Atlantic family. So, any law that introduces this idea of foreign agents, that I am also afraid that it actually has an impact on a lot of media outlets operating in Georgia, will undermine the whole idea of making Georgia a strong democratic society, Jens Stoltenberg stated. The draft law on transparency of foreign influence was resubmitted to the Parliament of Georgia, and the amendments will be discussed further in the Bureau session next Monday. U.S. Department of State spokesperson Matthew Miller responds to the initiation of the draft law on the transparency of foreign influence in the Parliament of Georgia. We are deeply concerned that draft legislation introduced into Georgia's parliament will derail Georgia from its European path and harm civil society organizations, improving the lives of Georgian citizens. We urge the government of Georgia to advance its EU aspirations, U.S. Department of State spokesperson Matthew Miller wrote on social media. U.S. Senators Jim Risch, ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Jean Shaheen, chair of the Subcommittee on Europe and Regional Security Cooperation, released the following statement after Georgia's ruling party reintroduced the Russian-style foreign agent law. It's incredibly disheartening to see the Georgian government bring back the foreign agents law. All this does is further divide the country. It is similar to laws Russia uses to restrict civil society and suppress political opposition. A democratic government in Georgia should have no reason for it. The Georgian people rejected this proposed law via mass demonstrations in March 2023. Not only would this draft law lead the political process in the wrong direction, but it would harm Georgia's transatlantic integration and its future in the European Union. The upcoming elections in October will be a crucial indicator for Georgia's democratic future. We strongly urge the Georgian parliament to reject this proposal. The EU also responded to the announcement by the ruling party in Georgia to reintroduce a draft law on transparency of foreign influence and noted that it raises serious concerns. The announcement by the ruling party in Georgia to reintroduce a draft law on transparency of foreign influence raises serious concerns. The European Union recalls the public pledge of the Georgian government and the ruling party from last year to unconditionally withdraw such legislation. The EU regrets that it is once again being considered despite strong public and international reactions in March 2023, creating and maintaining an enabling environment for civil society organizations and ensuring media freedom is at the core of democracy. It is also crucial for the EU accession process. The EU recalls that the European Council granted Georgia candidate status on the understanding that the relevant steps set out in the Commission's recommendation of 8 November 2023 are taken. Step 9 includes a recommendation for Georgia to make sure that civil society can operate freely, and Step 1 calls on Georgia to fight disinformation against the EU and its values. Transparency should not be used as an instrument to limit civil society's capacity to operate freely. We encourage the political leaders in Georgia to adopt and implement reforms that are in line with the stated objective of joining the European Union as supported by a large majority of Georgia's citizens. The EU calls on Georgia to uphold its commitment to the promotion of democracy, the rule of law and human rights, reads the EU statement. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has published its report on the second round of assessment of Georgia, evaluating the country's compliance with international standards in information exchange and transparency for payment purposes. According to the report, Georgia's current legislation and practices align with international standards. The report particularly praises Georgia's progress in accessing banking information, noting the effectiveness of the legal framework and practices in this area. The OECD report also commends the banking sector for its role in providing information on beneficial owners of companies and highlights the NBG's supervisory framework for its effectiveness in combating money laundering and terrorism financing. During the second round, the OECD initiated the assessment on March 10, 2023, conducting a comprehensive 3-year study. And what was new in business this week, Natia Taktakishvili will tell us more.
Loboda Spa Resort is actively preparing for summer 2024 and expects an increase in the number of tourists this year. Georgi Kevanishvili, executive director of Loboda Spa Resort, notes that Loboda will offer visitors a new 80-room hotel from June 1. However, this will not be the only infrastructural project that is planned to be opened at the resort on the first day of summer. We have a lot of news from June 1. We are opening a new hotel which will provide 80 additional rooms. The hotel will have a 35-meter pool, bungalows and etc. In addition, a completely different type of aquapark is being organized on Loboda, not the kind we are used to. It will be a unique green aquapark hidden in the forest of endemic species, notes the executive director of Loboda Spa Resort. Along with this, a jazz club will be opened at the resort from June 1. Construction and repair works of each project is completed. Loboda Spa Resort has been in operation in Kakheti since 2008 and offers various service to international and local tourists around the year. After the completion of a new infrastructure project, the number of hotel rooms in the complex will exceed 300. Erekle Kokaya, the executive director of hotel management company In Group, declares that despite the fact that winter in Gori is considered a low season for tourists, the occupancy rate of Gori Inn has increased to 60%. This is a significant increase compared to the last year. Erekle Kokaya predicts that the occupancy rate in Gori Inn should increase to 90% this year. According to him, the hotel is mostly visited by local, while Gori Inn also hosts athletes and foreign guests, especially from Europe. As for tourist groups, they mostly visit us from Thailand during the winter, while in summer we hope that the number of Chinese guests will increase because last year their number was quite large. Also, bookings from Uzbekistan are slowly being activated, Kokaya said. As for the rates, accommodation in the hotel per night starts from 200 lari and the cost of the service varies depending to the season. Gori Inn is a chain of hotel management company in group. More than 20 million lari was invested in the construction of the hotel and it includes 120 rooms in total. Georgian furniture manufacturing company Bakauriart is planning to expand this year. The sales director of the company, Tsotne Khatisashvili, told BMWG about this. According to him, the company located in Didi-Romi district in a two-story building has been manufacturing the furniture since 2014. The first floor of the building is an enterprise, while the second floor is a showroom. Due to the high demand, it's planned to build a second plant next to our enterprise, in which we have to invest about $300,000 USD. We buy raw materials from importers in Tbilisi, the largest part of which is Australian or Italian raw materials, Khatisashvili says. According to him, at this stage, about 20 people are employed in the enterprise. However, after the increase in production, it's planned to add more staff. Alexandre Chabashvili, the founder of glamping hotel Sirnari Glamping, told BMWG that it's planned to arrange a recreational space and an entertainment zone on the territory of tourist facility this year. However, they don't know exactly how much investment will be needed. Currently, the working process is underway, Chabashvili said. According to him, the complex was opened last summer, which includes 10 separate double rooms and a restaurant. A total of 700,000 lari was invested in it. Competition arrangement. During the season, we worked with 70% load, while in winter the load stood at 35%. In summer, mostly foreign guests, namely from China, Germany, France, Poland, as well as other countries visit us. The prices for accommodation in the hotel are seasonal. Currently, the cost of accommodation for one night amounts to 220 lari and reaches 207 lari. Chabashvili says. As for the restaurant, the facility offers customers traditional Georgian cuisine as well as European dishes. In addition, the restaurant offers a variety of drinks. At this stage, the tourist facility located on the road connecting Sirnari and Snori employs 7 lockers. However, with the increase in the workload, it's planned to employ a few more people during this season. The new wine brand Gianniani was exported to Holland and Great Britain. The co-founder Gia Piradashvili spoke about this with BMWG. The partners Gia Piradashvili and Kaha Shengelia started the business last year. Wine company produced 30,000 bottles of various types of wine, which is a mixture of Georgian and French grape varieties. Gia Piradashvili says that the wine is actively sold in the local market, and at the same time they are working to cover the export markets. We started sales in Holland and Great Britain. Today, Gianniani produces 30,000 bottles, and by the next year, these volumes will probably increase. Now we are working on the development of export markets. At this stage, we have agreed to sell our products in Norway, and later we will be active in other markets as well, Gia Piradashvili says. Georgian dried fruit producing company Çinçalazı is planning to export its products abroad this year. Executive director of the company, Irma Kochantiradze, told the BMWG about this. According to her, based on the negotiations with German partners, the company should sign a memorandum as soon as possible, which involves the production of unlimited quantities of products at the high standard and price of Çinçalazı. Our German partners should arrive at the end of April, with whom we are signing a business consolidation agreement. We will be able to produce an unlimited amount of dried fruit and send it to Germany. We are also making contracts with the partners from Israel, where 20 tons of dried fruit must be sent this year. Kochantiradze says, according to her, Çinçalazı plans to enter the Israel market in October. As for the human resources, the company currently employs over 14 people. However, depending on the increase in production, it's planned to add additional staff. Kochantiradze also talks about increased utility tariffs and the price of raw materials. Therefore, she does not rule out the increase in the cost of products. Çinçalazı is a family business that has been operating in the market for 7 years and owns one store in Tbilisi-Vake district. Erekli Kokaya, executive director of In Group, declares that Kutaisi Inn is planning to add a pool this winter. According to him, both hotel guests and local residents will be able to use the pool. As Kokaya mentioned, works on the project are underway and other details are not being made public at this stage. We want to add a swimming pool to the hotel in winter, which can be visited both by vacationers and the residents of Kutaisi. As for the occupancy rate, despite the low season, the average load of the hotel made up 75%, which was a very good indicator for the low season. However, the occupancy rate even exceeded 90% during the December. It can be said that the hotel is busy almost every year. The main vacationers are foreigners, especially from Europe. This was caused by direct flights at the Kutaisi airport, says Kokaya. According to him, as for the prices, it depends on this season. However, the prices in Kutaisi Inn have not been adjusted at this stage. Kutaisi Inn combines 100 different categories of rooms, restaurants, bar, conference and sport halls. Vegan Cafe Plantastic Kitchen was opened in Tbilisi with the support of TBC Bank. According to Anna Topuria, co-founder of the bistro, vegan cooking was initially only a hobby, but she decided to open a bistro in August 2023 and applied to TBC Bank jointly with her partner. The bistro, located on Ahmadiani Street, does not look like a vegan cafe, and the person who visits it for the first time will know that she's dealing with vegan cuisine. Despite the lack of space, the concept, branding, interior are well thought out. The owners of the cafe rejected the stereotypical green color, and the bistro looks more like an American diner. Most of the dishes repeat the menu of famous fast food chains. Everything is replicated here: burgers, steaks, hot dogs, and etc. Most of the raw materials for our type of cuisine are fresh products, vegetables, fruits, herbs, cereals, which are of high quality in Georgia. So the supply is not a big difficulty. We prepare dishes mainly with local products, but there are ingredients that come from abroad, such as meat and cheese substitutes. These products are always of premium brands. Even the most high-end vegan restaurants use them, Anna Topuria said. As of 12 people employed in the cafe are vegan, so a way to solve the problem of menu diversity and deficient products replacement is always easy to find.
The French-British investment fund Rothschild & Co. Does not comment on the multi-million-dollar contract with the Georgian government. The former Prime Minister of Georgia, Irakli Garibashvili, signed a contract with the company in 2021. The purpose of the agreement was to prepare a strategy that would transform Georgia into a financial hub. There is no strategy document after the utilization of funds of 10 million lari. Because of this, BMG addressed both the government administration and Rothschild & Co. with questions. Until now, BMG has not received a clear answer from the government administration if any valuable document has been prepared which would transform Georgia into an international financial hub. It should be noted that Rothschild & Co. itself does not comment on this. As of the Minister of Economy, Levan Davitashvili, the ministry was not the leading structure in this purchase and it was a project of the government administration. The Minister of Economy does not say clearly whether this agreement will continue or not. However, regarding the work done by Rothschild & Co., the minister states that there are certain reports published by Rothschild & Co. MP Roman Gotsiridze also asked Levan Davitashvili a question about this contract. Our ministry has not received this contract. We cannot tell you about the specific studies of the consulting company hired by the government. We have seen and participated in the working process. There are reports and you can request public information. The ministry has an important work in this direction and this process will continue. I have repeatedly talked about the fact that in order to create a financial hub, there must be financial instruments. The capital market must be significantly developed and the relevant legislation must be established, which we are also working on, said Levan Davitashvili. 3.8 million lari was paid to Rothschild & Co. in 2022 and 6 million lari was spent in 2023. Accordingly, 10 million lari has been paid for the preparation of the strategy document so far. But it should be noted that the strategy document has not been publicly published yet. And that's all for today. We will meet on Sunday, next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. But before that, you know what to do. You have to follow us on bm.g for more news on business and economics in Georgia and beyond.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.